Growing up, it felt like my siblings belonged to a completely different era. Nathan, Lauren, and Daniel were so much older than me that by the time I started making memories, they were already packing up for college or moving into their own apartments. I came along so late, I sometimes wondered if I was even part of the same family, or just a leftover surprise they had to make room for. Still, I adored them. Being the youngest meant seeing them through rose-colored glasses. I thought they were legends. Nathan, especially, he was the oldest and had this effortless charisma. In my eyes, he could do anything. Lauren was the sister I desperately wanted to be close to. I hoped she'd one day take me under her wing and teach me how to be like her. And Daniel, he wasn't that much older than me, and for a while, I thought maybe we'd be the ones to really connect. But even he kept his distance. The first time I really felt how little I mattered to them was when Nathan got married. I was 9. That's an age where you're stuck in between, old enough to want a seat at the grown-up table, but still young enough for everyone to treat you like a kid. When Nathan and his fiancée, Megan, announced their wedding would be child-free, I didn't think that meant me. I wasn't some stranger's loud toddler, I was his sister. I still remember sitting on the edge of my bed, asking Mom if I could wear her earrings for the big day. That's when she broke it to me. Sophie, Nathan and Megan are keeping it adults only. You won't be going. I just stared at her. But I'm not like a little kid, I argued. I'll be good. I promise. She smiled the way adults do when they're trying to soften a blow. You'll understand when you're older, she said, patting my head. I spent the rest of the day in my room, crying into my pillow. I wanted to see my brother get married. I wanted to be there when Megan walked down the aisle, because in my heart, she already felt like part of the family. Instead, I stayed home with a babysitter, watching the clock, imagining what I was missing. When Nathan came back from his honeymoon, I waited for him to say something, anything. Maybe tell me he missed having me there, or share a moment from the wedding. But he never did. He just went on like I hadn't been left out at all. Lauren's wedding came next. I was 14 then, a full-on teenager just desperate to feel like I mattered. At first, she wanted everyone at her wedding, kids and all. But the relatives got involved, dropping comments about how much nicer events are without wild children, or how kids ruin the mood. Eventually, Lauren gave in and made it official, no one under 18. I didn't throw a fit. I just sat there, numb, while my parents tried to soothe me with weak explanations. My mom gave me that same line about how one day I'd get married and it would be wonderful. But I didn't want a future promise. I just wanted to be included now. I went to Lauren and asked her, begged her really, to let me come anyway. I'm your sister, I said. I won't make a sound, I swear. But she looked at me with this dead serious face and said, if I make an exception for you, I'll have to do it for everyone. It wouldn't be fair. That was when it started to click. My siblings didn't really see me as one of them. At least, not in the way I saw them. So when Daniel got engaged and I was 17, I didn't even ask. I already knew. And sure enough, there it was again, child-free. This time I just accepted it like a fact of life. By that point, I'd checked out. Emotionally, I was done. It was painfully clear, I wasn't really part of their world. Not in a way that mattered. It hurt. It hurt in that quiet, lingering way that doesn't go away. After that last wedding, I gave up trying to wedge myself into their lives. I was exhausted. Tired of being the one left out. By the time I met Adam, my now fiancé, I'd pretty much emotionally checked out of the whole family thing. I had learned not to expect much from any of them anymore. Adam was the first person who actually sat and listened, really listened, when I opened up about my family. I remember sitting on his couch, telling him how I'd been excluded from all my siblings' weddings. His jaw dropped. Wait, seriously? They didn't invite you? Not even when you were, 15? I gave a small shrug. Nope. He looked at me like I'd just told him the sky was green. That's insane, he said. You're their sister. He kept shaking his head, like he couldn't wrap his mind around it. That was the moment it really sank in for me, how not okay it all was. I'd spent so long trying to make it seem reasonable in my head. Child-free weddings sounded polite enough on the surface. It wasn't like they were targeting me, right? But no, they made the same choice. Not once did anyone stop and say, hey, maybe Sophie should be there. That was a pattern. So when Adam and I got engaged a few years later, there was one thing I was absolutely certain about: my wedding was going to be different. It would be filled with people who actually cared about me, people who wanted to celebrate because they loved me, not just because they felt obligated. That's when I made the call, not to invite my siblings. No drama, no announcements, no long speeches. I just left their names off the list. I knew it would explode eventually. I just hoped I'd have time before the fallout began. The first spark came month before the big day. My mom called out of the blue, unusually cheerful. That alone should have been a red flag. So, Sophie, she said. How are the wedding plans coming along? Good, I said, trying not to sound suspicious. We're just about finished. That's wonderful, she said, pausing like she was leading up to something. But your brothers and sister haven't received their invitations yet. Did you already send them out? I wasn't ready for this talk. Yeah, I sent them out, I said, keeping my voice as casual as I could. She didn't miss a beat. Well, they never got one. Maybe something happened in the mail? I took a breath. Mom, I didn't invite them. There was a long silence. I could almost hear the air shift on the other end of the line. Then she exploded. What? Sophie, how could you not invite your own family? What's wrong with you? I gripped the phone tighter. They didn't invite me to any of their weddings, Mom. Not once. So I'm doing the same. It's fair. She reacted like I'd said something unforgivable. That was different. You were just a kid. They didn't mean to hurt you. I answered, well, it hurt anyway. And I'm done pretending it didn't. That's when the guilt trip started rolling in, full speed. This is spiteful, Sophie. You don't turn your back on your family. People will talk, what will everyone think? And there it was, my mom's favorite concern, appearances. I don't care what people think, Mom, I said, cutting her off. It's my wedding. And I'm only inviting people who've shown they care about me. They didn't include me when it mattered to me, so why should they be there now? She hung up on me. I can't say I was surprised. That night, the family group chat lit up like a fire. Lauren chimed in first, fake friendly as usual. Hey Sophie. Did something happen with the mail? None of us got our invites yet. Then Daniel followed, blunt and cold. What's going on? Why aren't we invited? I stared at the screen for a long time, debating whether to reply. Part of me wanted to finally say everything, to list out every time they'd ignored me, every birthday missed, every wedding I cried through. But deep down, I knew they wouldn't hear it. So I left the messages on read and moved on. At dinner, Adam noticed something was off. I showed him the texts. He read them, then looked at me and said, "You don't owe them anything, Sophie. They made their choices." Yeah, but, I started. They're going to twist this around. Make me the villain. Let them, he said, calm but firm. You know the truth. That's what matters. The next day, my parents showed up at my apartment without calling first. I opened the door and didn't even need to ask why they were there. My mom stormed in, voice sharp. What are you thinking, Sophie? Not inviting your own siblings? Who does that? I tried to stay cool, even though I could feel my temper rising. Mom, I said evenly, they made it clear I didn't matter enough to be at their weddings. So I've made peace with that, and I'm returning the energy. Then my dad spoke, voice tight with judgment. This is immature, Sophie. You're clinging to old wounds. That's when I lost it. I was a kid, Dad. I begged them to let me come. I cried for days. They were the ones shutting me out, not the other way around. Don't call me childish just because I remember how it felt. They didn't have much to say after that. My mom looked like she might cry, but I wasn't about to be guilt again. If you want to keep making excuses for them, go ahead. But I'm not changing my mind. If they cared back then, they would have shown it. They left angry, confused, and still somehow surprised. Over the next few days, the texts from my siblings turned meaner. Nathan said I was being selfish. Lauren accused me of tearing the family apart. Daniel skipped the sugarcoating and told me flat out, "You're being petty. Grow up." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I didn't owe them my pain anymore. One night, Adam saw me scrolling through all the angry messages and pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "You finally stood up for yourself." And for the first time in my life, I actually felt proud of myself too. I thought the storm would pass eventually. I figured they'd complain behind my back, vent to some extended relatives, and then let it go. That's how it usually worked in my family: tantrums, then silence. But I didn't realize just how far they'd take it this time. It started out small, as these things usually do. Lauren, naturally, couldn't help herself. She posted one of those classic passive-aggressive Facebook statuses, "Family is forever," even when some people forget what that word means. I rolled my eyes so hard it almost gave me a headache. Adam was sitting next to me on the couch, scrolling on his phone. I showed him the post. He didn't even hesitate. "Is she 14 or something?" "Feels like it," I muttered, trying to act like I didn't care. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that I knew the truth and didn't owe anyone an explanation. But the truth? It stung. No matter how much I tried to let it roll off, it hurt that my own sister was taking public jabs at me like that. And of course, it didn't end there. A few days later, the group chat with our extended family started lighting up. I'd muted it ages ago, but Adam still had it active. One afternoon, he looked up from his phone and said, "Sophie? You might want to see this." The messages were flying. "Lauren, it's just so sad when people let old grudges matter more than love." "Daniel, honestly, I'm just shocked. I thought we were better than this." And then, like clockwork, Nathan chimed in, always the one playing wise older brother. "Sophie, I never realized how much anger you were carrying. This bitterness is ruining your relationships. All over things that happened so long ago." I sat there staring at my phone, my blood boiling. They still didn't get it. Not one of them. They were painting me as the villain, turning my entire childhood of being left out into nothing more than a silly misunderstanding I refused to get over. Like I was being dramatic over nothing. I wanted to respond. God, I wanted to lay it all out, every hurtful moment, every time they left me behind. But I knew how that would go. They'd twist it into me being unstable, or accuse me of exaggerating again. That's what they always did when they didn't want to take responsibility. So instead of arguing, I did something they didn't see coming. I left the group chat. Just backed out. That same night, my mom called me. I could hear the anger in her voice before I even said hello. "Sophie, what is wrong with you?" "Hi, Mom," I said, flat and tired. "Don't you start with that attitude," she snapped. "Do you even realize what you've done? Your siblings are heartbroken. You're tearing this family apart. They ignored me for years, Mom. But now suddenly they're heartbroken? Come on. You're being cruel," she said. "You've always been like this, holding grudges, turning everything into a personal attack." And that's when I lost it. I'm the one holding a grudge? I said. I was 9 when Nathan got married. 9. I cried my eyes out because I wanted to be there, and all of you told me I didn't matter enough. Then it happened again. And again. I begged Lauren to let me go to her wedding, and she said no, because it wouldn't be fair. That was years ago, she said dismissively. Yeah. And I still carry the way it made me feel. You all decided I wasn't important enough back then. So why would you think you suddenly deserve a front row seat to my life now? She didn't have an answer. Instead, she tried to turn the tables. This isn't about the weddings. This is about you pushing everyone away. Adam's probably fueling this, isn't he? Mom, stop blaming Adam. This has nothing to do with him. This is me finally realizing that I deserve better. That I don't have to keep letting people treat me like I don't matter. Her tone shifted, suddenly softer, like she was trying to sound nurturing. Sophie, you don't understand. When everything else falls apart, family's all you've got. Friends and boyfriends come and go, but family is forever. No, I said firmly. Family should be the people who love you. Who support you. That's not what you've been to me. Then came the sobbing, loud and familiar. You're going to regret this one day, she said. I don't think I will, I said quietly, and hung up. After that, things got worse. I ended up blocking both Lauren and Daniel on social media. I just couldn't take the constant digs anymore. My mom even tried to rope Adam in. She called him twice, probably thinking she could talk some sense into him. He didn't answer. Then Nathan sent me this long-winded email, yes, an email, about forgiveness and unity. He even threw in a Bible verse about letting go of anger. I didn't reply. That night, I vented everything to Adam. I just needed to say it out loud. They act like I'm the problem, I told him. Like I'm overreacting. But they don't see it. They ignored me for years. And now that I'm finally drawing a line, suddenly I'm the villain. He looked at me and said something that stuck. They're not angry because they're hurt. They're angry because they can't control you anymore. That hit me right in the chest, because he was right. My whole life, I'd been the tag-along, the one they could dismiss or overlook whenever it suited them. But now? Now I was making a choice. Setting a boundary. Doing something on my terms. And they couldn't stand it. They'll get over it eventually, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Adam just smiled. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Either way, it's not your problem anymore. He was right. I didn't owe them anything. Not my time. Not my peace. And definitely not a seat at my wedding. About a week later, my dad texted me. It was short and laced with guilt. Sophie, your mom isn't doing well. She's really upset about all of this. Maybe you could reconsider? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed. Maybe she should have thought about that before leaving me out over and over again. The final weeks before my wedding were this weird mix of joy and tension. On one hand, I was counting down the days to marry Adam, the man who made me feel seen and loved in ways I never thought possible. On the other hand, the family drama was still there, buzzing in the background like a fly you can't quite swat away. After that last blow-up, my parents stopped calling me altogether, not that it mattered. I'd blocked my mom after her meltdown, so there wasn't exactly a way for her to get through. But that didn't stop others from trying. One afternoon, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years, Aunt Carol. That alone put me on edge. We hadn't spoken in ages, so I already knew this wasn't just a friendly check-in. I answered, and she got straight to the point, skipping past any kind of small talk. Sophie, sweetheart, I just don't understand why you're making such a fuss over this, she said, using that syrupy, patronizing voice of hers. Family is family. You can't just cut your siblings out of your wedding. I tightened my grip on the phone. Aunt Carol, this isn't just about one wedding. This is a choice I made after years of being treated like I didn't count. I'm not changing my mind. But they're family, she insisted, like that word was some kind of magical override button. I'm sure they didn't mean to hurt you. Can't you be the bigger person here? I closed my eyes, trying not to snap. Being the bigger person doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means knowing when enough is enough. And I just ended the call. The morning of my wedding, I woke up with a strange mix of calm and nerves. It wasn't the usual fear of rain or a wardrobe malfunction. It was this quiet tension, like I was waiting for something to go wrong. Even though my family wasn't invited, part of me still half expected them to force their way in somehow. But Adam, being Adam, wouldn't let me spiral. As we got ready in separate spaces, I told him what was on my mind, and he just smiled. "This is our day," he said. "Nothing else matters. And if anyone tries to mess with that, I'll personally walk them out." I laughed, and for the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. The venue we chose was small, beautiful, and intimate, a quiet garden with blooming flowers, soft twinkle lights strung overhead, and a little gazebo at the center where we'd say our vows. I wanted something that felt real. And that's exactly what it was. My closest friends were there. A few extended family members who had always treated me with kindness came, too. As I looked around, it just felt right. I stood in front of the mirror, putting the final touches on my dress, when Julia, my maid of honor and best friend since high school, walked in. "You look incredible, Sophie," she said, grinning from ear to ear. She watched me for a second, then gently asked, "Are you okay?" I hesitated. "Yeah, I think I'm just sad. But about the fact that my family isn't here." Her expression softened. She walked over and sat next to me. "It's okay to feel that," she said quietly. "Just because you made the right choice doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." Her words hit me harder than I expected. "I wanted them to care," I said, my voice catching. "I wanted them to fight for me when I was younger. And they never did." Julia pulled me into a hug. "You don't need their validation. Look at what you do have. You're surrounded by people who love you, really love you. That's what matters today." I nodded, wiping my eyes. She was right. This wasn't about who wasn't there, it was about the people who showed up for me. When the ceremony started, all of that heaviness fell away. I stood at the top of the aisle, staring at Adam, and felt this overwhelming wave of peace. This was what happiness looked like. As I walked toward him, it felt like I was stepping out of something, shedding years of rejection, years of feeling like an afterthought. I wasn't the forgotten kid anymore. I was a bride, loved and celebrated, surrounded by people who actually saw me. Our vows were everything I dreamed they would be. Adam promised to love me, to protect me, and to stand beside me no matter what. I promised him the same. By the time we said, "I do," there wasn't a dry eye in sight. Including mine. The reception that followed was pure magic. We laughed, danced, ate way too much good food, and toasted until our voices were hoarse. My friends shared hilarious stories and heartfelt wishes. Adam's parents hugged me and said they were proud to call me family. At one point, I slipped away from the party for just a moment. I wandered to the edge of the garden and stood there in the quiet, watching the lights twinkle in the trees and hearing the soft hum of laughter behind me. And I felt full. For so long, I believed what my family taught me, that I didn't matter, that I was easy to forget. But standing there, wrapped in love and warmth, I realized something important: I do matter. Just not to them. Later that night, as things started to wind down, one of my cousins came up to me, looking hesitant. "Hey, Sophie. I probably shouldn't say anything, but..." I groaned. "What now?" She looked guilty. "Your mom and Lauren threw some sort of dinner tonight. Like, an alternative to your wedding." I blinked. "Wait. Seriously?" She nodded. "Yeah. I know. It's ridiculous. I just thought you should know." I shook my head, still chuckling. "Well, I hope the food was good. Let them have their little pity party." She looked surprised I wasn't upset. If anything, it just confirmed I'd made the right decision. They spent years making me feel like I didn't belong, and now that I'd taken control of the narrative, they were scrambling to rewrite it. By the end of the night, Adam and I shared one last slow dance, surrounded by the people who loved us most. As we swayed under the lights, I leaned in and whispered, "I'm so glad we did this." My family hadn't been there. They missed out on the happiest day of my life. But the thing is, they weren't needed. Because as I looked around at all the love surrounding me, I realized everything I ever wanted, everything I ever needed, was already right here. And none of it had come from them. After the wedding, I really believed the worst was behind me. The day had been everything I'd ever wanted, beautiful, full of love, and without a hint of regret. I didn't spend a single moment wishing my family had been there. I was surrounded by people who truly cared, and that was more than enough. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that my family doesn't like being left out. It's like the very idea that I could be happy without them was too much for them to handle. So, naturally, they had to stir up drama one more time. It started with a message from Lauren. A week after the wedding, she sent me a text that oozed sarcasm. "Saw some photos from your wedding. Can't believe you had it in a garden. Looked casual. But I guess that's your thing." I stared at the message, floored. Not a "congrats," not a kind word, just her usual brand of veiled insult. She couldn't even pretend to be civil. It wasn't enough for her to ignore me for years. Now she had to nitpick how I celebrated the happiest day of my life. I considered firing back. But I didn't send anything. She didn't deserve my energy. I owed her nothing. A few days later, I started getting messages from distant relatives, people I hadn't heard from in years. It didn't take long to figure out that Lauren and Nathan were spinning their own version of events, trying to make me look like the villain. Even Aunt Carol popped back up in my inbox. "Sophie, I don't know what's happened between you and your siblings, but they're really hurt. Lauren says she tried to reach out and you won't even respond. Maybe it's time to let go of the past?" I stared at the message, annoyed and exhausted. How many times was I going to have to explain this? How many people did they have to drag into it before they accepted that I wasn't backing down? Adam noticed my frustration and sat beside me on the couch. "Another guilt trip?" he asked, glancing at my phone. "Yeah. Aunt Carol again. Apparently now they're all hurt." "I just don't get it," I said. "They ignored me for years. And now that I've drawn a line, I'm the problem." "That's how it always works," Adam said gently. "The second you start protecting your peace, the people who broke it act like they're the victims." And then came the lowest point, my mom showing up at my door unannounced. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. Adam and I were still in our pajamas, laughing over a batch of burnt pancakes. When we heard the knock, I froze. I knew it was her. I opened the door and, sure enough, there she was, standing there with that same dramatic expression she always wore when she wanted to play the martyr. "Sophie," she said, her voice full of disappointment, "we need to talk." I sighed. "Now's not a good time, Mom." But she didn't care. She pushed the door open a little, trying to step inside. Adam came up behind me, resting a calm hand on my shoulder. "Sophie, please," she said. "This has gone far enough. Your siblings are devastated." I kept my voice even. "You don't get to show up and scold me, Mom." Her face crumpled in disbelief. "They love you, Sophie. They're your family." "No, Mom," I said, firmer this time. "Family doesn't make you feel like you don't matter. They don't shut you out when you're a kid and then expect a front row seat when it's convenient. I spent years trying to earn a place in their lives, and they couldn't be bothered. I'm done." She stood there blinking, stunned into silence. I could see she wanted to argue, but Adam stepped forward and spoke softly, "I think it's time for you to go." She looked between us, her expression flickering between anger and heartbreak. "You'll miss us when we're gone," she said, her voice suddenly soft, like she was delivering some ancient prophecy. I looked her right in the eye. "No, Mom. I won't." Adam quietly closed the door behind her. And for a few seconds, I just stood there, waiting for guilt to kick in. It didn't. What I felt instead was relief. The next day, I got a text from Daniel. Mom said she came by and you slammed the door in her face. Real mature, Sophie. You're not even the same person anymore. I read it aloud to Adam. He didn't even hesitate. Block him. So I did. One by one, I blocked every sibling, every cousin, every relative who tried to guilt me into silence. For years, they made me feel invisible. And now I was reclaiming that space. The days that followed were quiet. Peaceful. No more nasty messages, no more passive-aggressive jabs. Just silence. And in that silence, I could finally breathe.